Hello, dear students. First, I'd like you to look at some pictures in order to find out what our lesson is going to be about today. Look at the first picture. Get ready for making comments on the pictures I'm going to show you. What are the pupils doing in this picture? Look at the first picture then. What are the students doing? Yes, they are learning maths. They are learning maths. Is that a large class? Of course not. There are just a few pupils in the classroom. Look at the next picture now. What do you think of it? Nice picture, I think. Look at the atmosphere in the class. In the classroom, the students, do they feel tense or worried or anxious? No. On the contrary, they are smiling, cheerful. What about the teacher? Comment on the teacher's features. She's smiling too, cheerful. Do the students seem to be happy? It seems so, yes. It seems so. What about the teacher? She seems to be happy too. Is she a friendly teacher? Yes. It seems that the teacher is friendly. And do the pupils seem to be motivated to have such a teacher? Yes. They seem to be motivated, of course. Is it a secondary school class? Do you think that this is a secondary school class? No. It's primary school class. This may be seen or may be noticed with reference to the pupils who are sitting at their desks. Let's move on to the third picture now. Look at this cartoon. What's the pupil doing? He is sitting for a test or for an exam. Does he seem to be comfortable? No, perhaps not. What is he doing exactly? He's trying to find the answer to a question, I suppose. Are exams important? Are tests important too? Of course, yes. What do we use tests for? What are tests used for? Why do we administer tests to our students? Yes, to assess their knowledge, to assess their level. The synonym for to assess that you know, I suppose. What is a synonym of to assess? Yes? To evaluate. Why is assessment important? It is through assessment that we can decide whether a pupil should pass to the next class or should repeat the year. So assessment is important because it can assess the level of the students, and you can decide whether the student should move on to the next class or should then repeat the year. Look at the fourth picture now. Is that something we are familiar with in our country? Perhaps not. So what can you see in the picture? This is a bus, and you can look at the picture carefully. This is a school bus, of course. Are school buses a tradition in our country? No. But in other countries, there are school buses which the students use to go to school every day. What about Picture 5. Look at the pupils first. Do you think this is a primary school class? No. What age do you think the students are? Perhaps the ages range from 12 to 14 or to 13. So they are preparatory school pupils then. Is the preparatory stage the first stage in education? No, it is the second stage. Look at the teacher. Look at the teacher and notice her attitude to the students. Is she a friendly teacher too? Yes, of course. What about the students? Can you use some adjectives that we've already used to describe other pictures? Yes, the students are smiling, cheerful, motivated. And what about the atmosphere in the classroom? Good. It's a relaxed atmosphere. Do you think that such conditions may motivate students to learn? Yes, of course. Your teachers, when you have a friendly teacher, this certainly helps you to concentrate and to be motivated to learn. Another picture to comment on now. Funny, isn't it? Did you used to have similar problems when you were at primary school? I think most of you did. What's the boy who is carrying the red bag? What's his problem? What's this boy's problem? Yes, of course, his bag is too heavy to carry. Is that a problem for pupils at primary school and even at secondary school sometimes and preparatory schools? Yes, of course. The students sometimes need to carry a lot of books and copybooks in their bags. What are the pupils doing in this picture? Yes, they are raising their hands. What would they like to do then? They would like to answer the teacher's questions. What do you notice? How old are they? Do you think they are secondary school pupils or preparatory school pupils? No. They seem to be studying at the primary school. Now, what do you expect your lesson to be about? Yes, of course, education. And you know that there are various aspects of education as a topic. So let's go back to the pictures first that we have just commented on. What are some expressions that are worth retaining and that you can use when you need to express certain ideas in a situation which is similar to the situation we have been exposed to? A relaxed atmosphere, motivated pupils, cheerful teacher, cheerful pupils, smiling teacher, and smiling pupils. We say to sit for or to take an exam, which is different from to pass an exam. To pass an exam in English means to succeed in an exam, which is the opposite of to fail an exam or in an exam. So to sit for an exam or to take an exam. And I think you are going to sit for an exam in the end of this school year. To assess the pupil's level or to assess the pupil's knowledge. To travel to school. You can travel to school by bus, on foot. It depends on where your house is located. whether it is near your school or a long way from your school, to carry heavy bags, and to raise one's hand. You certainly need to raise your hand if you desire to answer a teacher's question. Well, let's now move on to our lesson's title. Yes, our lesson today is comparing educational systems. What does an educational system include? What does it involve? So when we deal with educational systems, what sort of topics can you expect to deal with? Look at these items. We've got 4 boxes. What do these boxes show you? Educational systems involve the types of schools. What is meant by types of schools? It can be a primary school, it can be a preparatory school, or it can be a secondary school. The names may differ from one country to another, but these are the schools in Tunisia, for instance. There are also exams. What about the next item? Compulsory education. What is compulsory education? What does this concept mean? It means that the students have to stay at school until a certain age. They aren't free to leave school whenever they like. And something which is also related to school systems, which is school age. You know that children usually start school at a certain age, and they take, or they are supposed to take, exams at certain ages during their education, of course. Well, as I've just told you, you are going to take an exam in the end of this school year. What exam are you going to take next June? What is the exam called? Good, yes, it is the BAC, or the baccalaureate exam. How long have you been studying at a secondary school? Good. Most of you have been studying at secondary school for 4 years. Let's go back to the time you started the school. How old were you then? You were about 6, perhaps 6.5, perhaps 5.5. So at what age do Tunisian children usually start school? They usually start school at the age of 6, or at about 6. How long do they stay at primary school? Good, yes. They stay at primary school for 6 years. And where do they go after they finish primary school? They move to a preparatory school, or what we call a prep school. How long do Tunisian pupils stay at prep school? Yes, they stay at prep school for 3 years. At what age do they usually finish the preparatory stage? They usually finish the preparatory stage at about 15. When does compulsory education start, and when does it end? Compulsory education, of course, starts at the age of 6, as soon as they enter primary school. And compulsory education ends at the age of 16. So Tunisian children have to stay at school from the age of 6 until the age of 16. How long does the secondary stage last? I think we've already answered this question, but just to remind you of it. The secondary stage lasts 4 years. Do all students go to university after the final year of the secondary course? No, not all of them. Which ones can go to university? Those who can pass the back exam can go to university, of course. So let's have a look at the first text. This is a first text, and then you are expected to do the exercises that follow. Let's read the text then. Education in Tunisia is free. Tunisian children usually start formal education at the age of 6, and they have to stay at school until the age of 16. Schooling in Tunisia comprises basic and secondary education. Basic education lasts 9 years and is divided into 2 distinct stages: 6 years of primary education and 3 years of preparatory education. So have a look at the text before we move on to the exercises. Look at the first exercise. Pick out the details in the text showing that these statements are false. So I'll have you look again at the text. What for then? To pick out the details in the text that show that the 2 statements that you can see here are false. Let's read the statements first. Tunisian pupils have to pay a fee to enroll in primary school. Second item, compulsory education ends at 12. Look at the 2 statements again. Now look at the text. Look again at the text and find the 2 details we need to show that these statements are false. Have you picked the 2 details out? What are they? Look at the text again. Look at the parts in green. Education in Tunisia is free. So this is used to show that Tunisian children do not usually pay a fee in order to study at school. What is a fee then? A fee is an amount of money that you need to pay before you can study at a school or at a college. Look at the second detail to justify the second statement. They have to stay at school until the age of 16. So what does this show? This shows that they do not have to stay at school until the age of 12. On the contrary, they must pursue their studies until they reach the age of 16. They could not leave school before this age. So these are the 2 details to justify the 2 statements. Look at the second exercise now. Focus on have to in the following sentence and tick the right option. They have to stay at school until the age of 16. What does have to express? Does it express possibility, advice, or obligation? of course, it expresses obligation. Let's move on now to the second text. Read the text and do the exercises. Let's read the text together first. Secondary education is provided for all students who have satisfied the requirements for passing the 9th grade of basic schooling, according to continuous assessment procedures, and for pupils with a basic schooling certificate. Secondary education lasts 4 years, and it culminates in the baccalaureate, a passport to higher education. Read the text quickly, please. Read it again. Now, let's move to the exercises. Exercise 1. Complete the sentences with the right information from the text. To go to secondary school, prep school pupils must either satisfy the requirements for passing the 9th form or obtain, what is the other alternative? Have a look at the text. Yes? Or obtain a basic schooling certificate. If they hold a basic schooling certificate, this is a passport for moving to secondary school. But they can pass on to or move to secondary school if their marks on tests allow them to do so. Look at the second sentence now. To go to university, what do pupils have to do? To go to university, pupils have to pass the baccalaureate. I didn't have you look again at the text because this is something that you know very well. But let's go back to the text now. Look at the second detail. The baccalaureate, the passport to higher education. I think everybody knows what a passport is. You use a passport to travel abroad. But in this context, a passport then is a diploma or is a certificate which allows you to go to university. Look at the second exercise now. Tick the right option. The Tunisian education system is a 6-4-3 plan, a 6-4-3 plan, or a 6-4-4 plan. So I read again then. Is it a 6-4-3 plan? Is it a 6-3-4 plan? Or is it a 6-4-4 plan? Of course, the right answer is number B. The Tunisian education system is a 6-3-4 plan. What is meant by 6-3-4 plan? Good, yes. You have to stay at primary school for 6 years, at a prep school for 3 years, and at a secondary school you have to spend 4 years. Now, let's move on to the next step. Third exercise. Now I think you can complete this table with the right information about our educational system. Look at some pieces of information that have been provided and try to complete the table with the missing information with reference to your personal knowledge of and personal experience, of course, and with reference to some of the details that we came across in the text. Yes, good. So, first, at age 6, students start primary school. They have to stay there until the age of 12. This is the primary stage, and there are 6 forms. Then, from 12 till 15, the preparatory stage, from level 7 till level 9. And then at the secondary school, then it is age 15 till 19, and the years if the forms are from 1 to 4. Now we've got another text. Look at the instruction first. You will just read the text, and it is clear that this is a text that provides you with some information about a different system. It isn't the Tunisian system anymore now. It's another system, which is the Italian educational system. Well, let's read the text together. Education is free and compulsory in Italy between the ages of 6 and 14. Italian children attend elementary school for 5 years, intermediate school for 3 years, and high school for 5 years. There are written and oral exams at the end of each period of schooling. Before entering university, students take the maturity exam. Most students can have a place at university. Well, let's focus together on some details that you can see in this text about the Italian educational system. If you look at the names of the types of schools that we have, what is the equivalent of primary school in Italy? Yes, it is elementary school. What equivalent for prep school do they use in Italy? In Italy, they call this type of a school an intermediate school. And high school in Italy is the equivalent of secondary school in Tunisia. What exam do they have to take to be able to go to university? They have to take the maturity exam, which is the equivalent of the bac exam in Tunisia. Now, let's move on to the next step. We've got a table that you are going to fill in with some details related to the Italian educational system. As you can notice, this is a similar table to the table that we have just focused on Tunisian education. So have a look at the text again and try to complete with the missing information. Focus on the details that you need to focus on. Look at the table again. I think it isn't so difficult as it may seem. Let's have a look at the table with the full information now. You have 3 stages: elementary, intermediate, and high. Look at the ages and look at the forms or years. There are certainly some similarities as well as some differences between our system in Tunisia and the system in Italy. Now, with reference to the information that we have gathered and which focuses on the two systems, let's use a Venn diagram to indicate the similarities and the differences between the Tunisian and the Italian educational systems. What is a Venn diagram? You may wonder what a Venn diagram is. Perhaps you never used to deal with or to use this sort of labeling in the previous years. This is a Venn diagram. There are two intertwined circles. In the middle, we are expected to mention the similarities, and you should also mention what is specific to the Tunisian system and what is specific to the Italian system. Now, let's try to go back to some details related to the two systems. What are the similarities between the two systems? Let's read the similarities together. In both systems, schooling starts at the age of 6. There is compulsory education in both countries. There are also 3-stage systems in Tunisia as well as in Italy. And both Tunisian students and Italian students cannot go to university before they pass an exam. What about the differences now? Focus on this table. So this is a table which highlights the differences between the two educational systems. Well, we said that in Tunisia we have a 6-3-4 plan. What about the system in Italy? In Italy they have a 5-3-5 plan. This means that they stay at primary school for 5 years, at intermediate primary or elementary, as it is called in Italy. At intermediate school they have to stay for 3 years, and at secondary school they stay for 5 years. Well, it's true that in both countries there is compulsory education, but let's look at the age range concerning compulsory education. Compulsory education in Tunisia ends at the age of 16. Of course, it starts at the age of 6. It ends at the age of 16. But in Italy, although it starts at the same age, it ends at the age of 14. What about assessment? What are the differences in the assessment system used in Tunisia and the one used in Italy? In Tunisia, there is assessment at the end of the primary and preparatory stages, which is done through tests. You know that if in the end of the school year a student manages to get the average, he can pass on to the next class. And he can pass on from one stage to another if his average allows him to do so. But what about the Italian system? In the Italian system, there are oral and written exams at the end of the elementary and intermediate stages. Well, this means that they cannot pass on to, or they cannot move to another stage before they can take an exam. Now, we've come to the ultimate step. I think now you have enough information about the two systems which may allow you to write an article for your school magazine. Look at the topic first. Write a short article for your school magazine highlighting the similarities and the differences between the Tunisian and the Italian educational systems. So there are two aspects then. What are the two aspects you are supposed to focus on? First, the similarities. Then, in the second part, you focus on the differences. Let's go back to some details related to this topic. Well, what signal words are we supposed to use, or what words or connectives are we supposed to use to show similarity? You have some examples here. Of course, we can use both and, as well as, and besides. They are used for similarity, of course. What about some connectives or linkers that we can use for contrast? You can use whereas or while, which are synonymous. They are synonyms. You can use however, unlike, and but. These are some examples of signal words that are often used for contrast. Well, look at this first part. So this is the first part of our article, which focuses on the similarities. Well, as you can notice, the words or the signal words for similarity have been highlighted. You can see them in blue. So read this first part of the article. The Tunisian and the Italian educational systems are similar in some ways. In both Tunisia and Italy, children start education at the age of 6. Besides, education is compulsory for children in both countries. And in Tunisia, as well as in Italy, there is a 3-stage system. Also, to go to university, both Tunisian and Italian students have to pass an exam in the end of the final year of the secondary stage. Now, this is the second part, but as you can notice, there are some words which are underlined, the words in red. So this is a paragraph written by a student, and you know that you often make certain mistakes when you write something. So let's focus on the underlined mistakes and try to correct them. You know that there are different types of mistakes. Sometimes you make spelling mistakes, sometimes